Enjoy with your headphones for a better listening experience.
Please watch till the end of the video to have the most scariest part of the story.
What's a horrifying experience you have lived? 236. I want a house that was shaped like an L with the master bedroom at the top of the L and one window overlooking the patio and the leg of the L. The end wall at the top of the L was a walk-in closet sharing the outside wall with the outside storeroom. One night I was awakened around midnight by a steady mechanical noise. My first thought was, why would my neighbor be mowing the lawn at midnight? Then I realized the sound did not increase or recede as it would if someone were walking back and forth with lawn mower, nor did it ever change pitch or frequency such as a small engine does when it runs. I sat up in bed and realized that all 8 of my cats were in the bedroom and all looking directly at the end wall. Suddenly the sound increased in the pitch and ran faster and started coming around the corner of the house toward the patio and the window I had left open for the cats. Immediately when the sound changed pitch, all the cats fuzzed up and shot off down the hallway. Up to that point I was not frightened, but the cats' reaction scared the pajamas out of me. I didn't have time to run, so I just buried myself under the covers in bed. If I can't see it, can't see me, right? The sound hung at the window for a minute or two before moving back around to the end wall, then suddenly quit. It did not fade off and did not wind down like a small engine does when it's turned off. It literally just quit. Nobody believed me when I tried to explain how creepy that was. Most insisted it had to have been the mosquito truck, which only ran during the day, never at midnight, and even that sound would increase and recede as the truck passed by. The next morning, I found no sign of anything, no impressions in the grass or anything like that. So, what was it? Aliens? The local chainsaw murderer? This happened in 1993, and I have kicked myself ever since for not looking to see what it was when that sound came to the window. However, like they say, maybe some things are better off not knowing. 237. When I was 19 I worked at an activity center for 8 to 13 years old kids. Canoeing, archery, climbing etc. A big old mansion in the English countryside. On the weekends the instructors would go and have a few beers in a pub in the nearby village. This meant walking through a forest for about half an hour by torchlight each way. One night the 3 of us set off to the pub. I became aware that I could hear something moving in the woods off to one side. I told the others and we stopped to listen. It stopped too. We set off again, walking faster. It set off too. We stopped and called out, thinking someone was trying to scare us. Nothing. We had a few beers and walked as fast as we could back to the center. A couple of days later we heard that some of the kids had reported a man stood at the edge of forest watching them. 238. Lived through a war. A lot of things stuck with me even 30 years later. The sounds of shots and airstrikes are too real. I don't watch war-themed movies. The lack of food and basic necessities drives my frugal habits. The other day on Facebook someone posted about rice having bugs in it and they threw it away. If you throw away rice because of bugs, you don't know what it means to be hungry and not have enough food. 239. When I was 13 years old, it was August, and I was crossing the road on my bike. I did not see the blue minivan until it was too late, and I blacked out after feeling the force of a car and skidding across the road and looking up to see EMT standing over me and my neck in a cast. I woke up in a hospital. They discharged me not long after. I was surprised I did not sustain any broken bones or fractures. I had my knees and elbow burned hard with massive scars across my shins. When I got home I found out why. My bike was completely totaled. It had taken the brute force of the car and ricocheted me to safety. If I hadn't been on that bike, I would have certainly been dead or broken in other ways. That bike saved my life. Ever since then I have become super paranoid when crossing the road. I have a fear of it happening again. It took a long time before I was able to ride confidently again, but I'm 26 now and sort of recovered. I never cross the road anymore without finding a crosswalk and have a fear of cars. I am lucky to be alive and I have my bike to thank for it. 240. Once I was at my stepdad's house and I looked out back and I saw that his truck lights were on. My brother and I were going home to our dad's that day and our stepdad escorted us out to my mom's SUV. My stepdad brought his gun in case someone tried to rob or kill us. Suddenly we heard a gunshot. My stepdad ran off toward the sound and our mom drove us home. Next time we were over, we learned that the gunshot we heard was our stepdad's brother scaring off any threats to our safety, and that after I saw the truck lights, my stepdad had called him up to scout the scene. He lives right behind where my stepdad lived, so that's why we heard the gunshot so soon. 2:41, I woke up at about 4:30 a.m. on a school day and the house was unusually cold and I got up to play on my Switch. I lost track of time and the house only felt colder by the minute. I began to grab bigger blankets to cover myself more when I felt my blood curdle, chills down my spine, paralyzing fear, and urge to run. Something was reaching out for me with frigid fingers and a cold blank stare. If it weren't for the adrenaline and moving just in time, I would have been in shock from fear and anxiety. 2:42, it was back in 2016. I used to live in a society of 4 apartments, A, B, C, D. Me and my 4 friends were in B wing floor 5 and we were collecting money for festival. We collected money from the 5th floor and headed towards the stairs and started going down. I still remember we went exactly 1 floor down and knocked on the door on the left side, and then my friend, call him Jack called us from a floor above us. So basically, what happened was we were on 5th floor, took stairs down, and we were at the 3rd floor, and creepy part about that was that many people used to experience that thing and complained about it, and some even said that the building was built on a cemetery. What exactly happened we still don't know. 2:43, so, as you can tell, it's a throwaway account. I don't know if this story counts as it were online, but I couldn't see my girlfriend due to COVID-19 and we could only use Discord, Reddit and Roblox. One time she met a guy on Roblox while I was there who was calling her cute. Me and a friend scared him away and then he came back the next day. We scared him again by threatening to call the police. But she had friended him. He was then being creepy and calling her BB. It took a long time, but me and another friend got him to go. But then he came back the very next day. He was saying he was 13, a year older than her, and he was saying she should wear pink. He had her address and he had mine. So, then all of a sudden, like whipping out a reverse card in Uno, she started saying his full name and address and stuff on the game, and it scared the hell out of the guy. We were thinking of extorting him by threatening to call the police if he still didn't leave her alone. Then he left. This happened today and I hope it's over. Because that guy can get himself arrested. He was not 13.
2:44. One day on my way to work, I was waiting for the bus in the stop and suddenly I see a car just pulled over a few meters of the stop and started to baking up, stop the car, and a dude who had military uniform came outside of the car, sat next to me, and start talking with me, trying to know me, who I was, my name, and what am I think about the army. He then asked me where I was going and told him about my job. He then offered me if I wanted a ride. I declined, but he kept trying to take his offer. The bus was at the lights, so I just waited for it and continued my day. I was alone on the bus stop in the middle of the day, so I didn't feel in danger, but it creeps me out what just happened and the clear intentions of this military man. 2:45, sometime back in 2002. Went to a gas station at about 2:30 a.m. Man across from me and a friend was pumping gas with no pants on, or socks or shoes. Just a hoodie cinched up all the way close. It was one of the coldest and rainy, windy nights of that year. His van's windows were completely covered up so you couldn't see inside. He got done and drove off. No, we didn't get the license plate. We were too freaked out, honestly, to think that straight. I didn't want to leave my friend, so we waited for him to go. Then went inside to talk to the attendant. Tell him to check the video and maybe call the police. He said he didn't see anything and blew it off. But still, I wonder how jacked up you have to be acting like that. Can't be anything good, I don't think. 2:46, a few years back I was over at my then girlfriend's house, lesbians. We were both in high school, so we were making out by my car before I had to go home. A fancy car, with all the windows blacked out, was driving by at a normal speed and slammed on their brakes as soon as they saw us. The car just waited in the middle of the road for at least a minute. Then it drove off. I decided to go home because that was creepy. As soon as I drove around the corner, I saw the car with the blacked out windows. They turned on their headlights and started to follow me. I did not have a phone on me, and I did not know how to get to the police station in the town I was in. I was in a slightly rural American well-lit suburb, so I decided to stay where I was. I just drove in circles around my girlfriend's block with the guy following me for 5 terrifying loops. On the 5th time around the block, the car flashed their headlights a bunch behind me, then slammed on the gas and passed me. I didn't know if whoever was driving wanted to kidnap me or homophobe me, but I don't think their intentions were kind. It scared me quite a bit. 247. This happened like 4 years ago. I was 13 living with my family in an old farmhouse. This house just gave everyone weird vibes, and it was also filled with lead. Don't worry, we moved out. So me being me, I hate the hot, so I slept in the sunroom in the house, because I'm me. So one night, I randomly woke up at 2 a.m. feeling like I was getting watched. I was paralyzed with fear and couldn't move, but then all of a sudden I heard movement outside and someone yell, "Hello, is someone there?" I was scared out of my mind. I ran inside with my blanket and my phone and ran to my room and locked the door. I kept hearing outside someone move and talk. My window was open. I didn't sleep for the next week, but it happened again. I was sitting in my room on my phone with my window open. All of a sudden I heard, "Hey stupid bitch, I see you." I got scared and ran to my sister's room, crying. My sister woke up and comforted me. For the whole night, I didn't sleep for another 3 days until I went to my nana's and actually spent a couple nights there. She said I slept for 20 hours. Don't come at me for not having punctuation, please. 248. Was drinking with some mates in the city of NZ. Met a guy who was lost, who said he was Canadian, just got to NZ, was lost, and he needed to find his hotel. I knew where it was. Helped him find it, and he said he'd get me a drink, just needed to grab his wallet. Went up to his room, he pointed to a bottle and said, "Pour us one." I thought sweet, poured him and myself a shot, and he walked to another room, said, "Have another," as he went for a pass. I did and turned around, man was naked. Next thing I remember him saying, "They are coming," and saying I am out, and him replying, "No you can't, they are coming." I didn't know who they were, or what was going on. I freaked out, pushed him away, and these 2 people at the counter were staring at me, watching me. Then I woke up in a police cell for disturbing the peace, shirt ripped, and my face covered in blood. A lot of time had passed. One of my friends thought he was dodgy, but as I am a guy, thought meh. Came looking for me after an hour, and I was not coherent at all, and nearly hit by 2 cars, and then tackled by 1 police officer out of nowhere, headfirst into the ground, being arrested. My friend saw and argued with the officers, apparently 6 of them, but yes. Learned typical symptoms of being roofied, and I cannot drink anymore. I only had 4 drinks that night, but liver damage. I drank 2 beers the following weekend. The following morning, had yellowing of the whites of my eyes, freaked out, and went to the docs. No help, but was damaged. Sorry if it is all over the show, hard to talk about, and also, because I only have partial recollection, and a lot of time passed. Yes, be skeptical of strangers, they can change your life completely. 249. Keep in mind that I was 11 at the time, and had no idea about, well, anything. So, I had went camping for the first time with some friends, and their parents. Everyone else was asleep, but I was awake, roaming through the woods. The only reason I was doing this is because I found peace in the woods. I had a lot of issues with stress and anxiety, so it really helped. But anyways, I looked out, because I heard a twig snap. I didn't think much of it, which looking back at it, no, I probably should have, but I just kept walking further out into the woods. I heard something walking, but I heard it from behind me this time. I was terrified. I thought that maybe it was a bear or something, so I ran, only I ran further into the woods. I know now that if a brown bear is chasing you to play dead, but I didn't know that at the time. So, I ran, only to keep hearing the thing behind me. I finally stopped, because I was out of breath, and walked towards it, with a stick. If it really were a bear, I would have been ducked, but I walked towards it, and held out the stick, only to see it was a goose. Why was there a goose in the middle of the woods? No idea. But I hit it with a stick, and it hissed at me. So, I threw the stick at it, and ran back to camp. I woke up my friend, and told them about the goose, but they said that there wasn't a goose out where we were. Which just made it worse. Looking back at it, no, I have no idea why I was afraid of a goose or why I decided to throw a stick at it. Poor goose, but everything else was normal after that, and it was just a normal camping trip. I never went camping again after that, even to this day. And I'm afraid of geese now. 250. When I was 6, me and my cousin, same age, were in my new house my family had bought, and when I was there was a small door, what's it's called, and in it were these pipes. When I saw it, I thought to myself it could be like a little hangout place for me and my cousin, so when we were at my house I told her about the place, and we went there while my mother showed the rest of my family my new house. When we were there it looked pretty dusty, but we could have cleaned that, but when I closed the door, I realized that the door didn't have a handle, so we started to panic. The first thing we started to do was to scream for help, but I don't think they heard us. Then we found a star of some sort, hay straw, and thought we could pick the lock, because it only had a handle from the outside, but that didn't work. We started crying and screamed the loudest we could, and also we thought that standing on the pipes would help, but then my cousin said that I'll break it, so she stood on it. I thought that was stupid. Then finally, my family came what they said, because that was a long time ago, but I remember that they said that they heard someone scream help when they were in the basement. Of all, 3 years of me living there, I never went in there again, and also to this day, I'm wondering what would have happened if one of the pipes broke. What would happen?
251, at my ex-girlfriend's cousin's house for the night, in a very small town. It was known to have a lady in a white dress, so we planned to spend the night. We were watching a movie, and behind the TV at an angle that only I can see is a silhouette of a person calmly walking by. I immediately checked, and nothing. The rest of the night was normal except when we went to bed. We all stayed in the same room and the cousin passed out immediately. The cousin's parents were out of town for the night, and he also had a large dog that slept downstairs. The house was quite old and very creaky, so any footsteps were clear as hell. As I started to begin falling asleep, I heard from the bottom of the stairs walking. It wasn't normal walking either, it was steadily slow, exactly like how the silhouette passed by the window. Think of how Jason walks. The footsteps, which clearly had boots on, walked up the stairs and around the hallway, stopping at our closed door. Not only did the dog not bark, but I legitimately thought we were about to be murdered. My heart is pounding at this point when I hear my ex ask me quietly, terrified, "Did you hear that?" After what felt like an eternity with no further movement, I slowly opened the door and no sign of anything. Glad it was a ghost. 252. I woke up one morning to call the police and panicked in my house. In the early hours of the morning, a group of thieves opened a window and made multiple trips in and out of the house with our valuables. Our neighbor woke up early to take his dog outside, saw what was happening, and called the police. The scariest part wasn't getting robbed, it was that I slept soundly through the entire thing. These men made multiple trips around the house, including the room outside my bedroom door, and I didn't even notice. They could have come into my room and done much worse, and I would have been completely defenseless. 253. When I was a little kid, I would frequently be home alone. Hispanic parents, in the 90s, lol. I remember one time getting a knock on the door. I looked through the window and saw a work van and a man in what appeared to be a HVAC-type outfit on. I asked what he wanted, and he said, "I'm here to fix the AC your parents called." I immediately thought to myself, the house is pretty cold, the AC is working fine. I told him to wait up while I went to call my parents and ask them. He immediately got in his van and left. 254. Okay, so I was going trick-or-treating with my friends one Halloween. I was around 12 to 13, and we all noticed 3 people holding fireworks, and they looked to be 14 to 15 years old. We just assumed they were taking them to a park to turn the light off. A while later we are on a corner of the street we were on, and on the corner there was a small shop with a man looking outside at the fireworks. And the 3 people from earlier were there. We were a bit on edge because of the fireworks until one came up to me and goes, "You want to buy a firework?" I obviously said no, and he seemed quite annoyed by it. I looked towards my friends for a second, and when I look back at the guy again, he has a match to the end of the fireworks preparing to light it. I ran so fast away from him, and from what my friends told me later, he apparently tried to throw the firework into my hood. This was the last straw for us. As we started walking away from them, I turned back to see the guy at the shop retreating indoors and the kids aiming the fireworks and with the lighter on the end of them again. I instantly panicked and shouted to my friends to run, where we turned the corner and ran for a minute. I was looking behind me constantly until I heard one of my friends say, "Where are Gary and Joe?" Not actual names. We all stop and call their names for a second. We eventually decided we would head back to one of my friends' houses and hopefully meet them there. Once we arrived at the house, we waited for 10 minutes. We were about to go out looking for them when they both came back. One had a cut on his head and the other looked to have come back traumatized from a war. Apparently what happened was Gary went back for some reason and Joe followed to see where he was going. They encountered the people with fireworks and they chase Gary. He falls to the floor and bangs his head of the ground and Joe runs and hides under a car. I've never seen fireworks the same way since.
255. I had a brush with a serial killer when I was 16. I had spent time with him as a group before he invited me to a warehouse rave and said we would try a whole bunch of drugs. I was a vulnerable and off-the-rails young teen, partial to wrong decision-making, but something about his growing insistence began to make me feel uncomfortable and out of my depth. Call it instinct or divine intervention, but I made my excuses. He angrily phoned me saying some really sexually violent stuff and I hung up. Sometime after, he stalked and murdered a poor girl who looked similar to me in my hometown. They believe he was responsible for other rapes and murders in another country. I feel he had something planned for me that night.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.